Hey folks. All right, so we are back. Got back last night from visiting my parents back in Washington. So, got right into it. I just had a few things that I wanted to do. Right before I left for vacation, took the car out for one more test run. And on the first hit, it went to the target boost. Unfortunately, though, and I guess kind of conveniently as well, because it gave my tuner a little bit more data, so he could. This is one of the times where doing more tests actually helped out. So we've also got some stuff dialed in, so it's a lot safer to do so. But the first pull, like I said, reached target boost. The second pull didn't come close. And so made a few tweaks, or my tuner made a few tweaks to the tune. And I'm also going to be changing out the spark plugs upon his request, which is probably a good idea because if you guys remember a few months back now, the first tune that I had on this, the break-in tune, was an absolute disaster. After 20 miles, one of the spark plugs had already been blown out, and it was just absolutely, it was a dog and whatever. And then I went back to the old tune and then found the tuner. So the plugs have now been in for roughly about 1,000 miles or so. Obviously nothing crazy. I've just got two trips, 8 hour trips on them, and then the dyno sessions, and then all these test runs and whatnot. So they've got some beating on them, but a lot more street driving and casual whatevers. So anyway, gonna switch those out, and then I'm gonna go download the other calibration that my tuner sent me and upload it, and I'll show you the run too, so you guys can get an understanding of what I'm talking about when talking about hitting boost. And I'll try to talk through a bit more cohesively as well. So still gonna try to keep the video short, but I'm gonna talk a little bit more of the way that I would like to, so to give a fuller understanding of what's going on. Anyway, there's also some changes I wanted to make. So I have this super cool RCM thermostat here, this guy, and necessary for the hot summer days. Not really good for these cold winter days. So this one, I believe, I know it says 70 Celsius. I don't know how to read that, so whatever, I'll do, Fahrenheit. So this one opens up at 70 degrees Celsius, or I believe it's either 156 or 158 degrees is when it starts opening. So the engine takes a lot longer to warm up than I would ideally like it to. And then this one is the OEM. I'm going to put that back in for the winter, and so I'll switch back to the RCM in this hot summer days. I'll see how how the OEM one performs on the track in the colder months, so like March, April. But then I'll definitely be switching it out for this once it gets warmer. But if this one doesn't help out too much or whatever, or the engine I think it's too hot, then I'll swap it out and blah blah blah. I'll have to swap out anyway because I'm putting coolant or antifreeze into the car, and so yeah, doing that for the winter, whatever. So this is supposed to up it at like 172, I believe, and then on the calibration, I'm also going to change it so that the fans turn on at what I believe is the factory setting. I believe it's 198 and then 207. So 198 for the first fan and then 207 for the second, so that the engine actually gets up to temperature and whatnot. And then hopefully that also helps the oil heat up, and hopefully it allows the temperatures of the fluids to be up there. But yeah, so there's that. And then I kind of got ahead of myself. I was going to put in that guy right there, which is the block heater, but I think I'm going to stray from this for right now, simply because it's in a tight spot underneath. But I just don't want to, I've got the header on still, so that's kind of what's keeping me from doing it, really. So once I'm not lazy and I actually take off the header, I'll do it, and then I can just stay in the car. As we all know, during the summer months. It won't be used. The cool thing is some of them actually have have the filament that comes out of the plug. This one has the filament that I think it just stays like right there with the threads that go into the block. So there is no chance for the water to actually, or yeah, the flow of water to be impeded. It just heats up the water. Whereas the old one, the old style that I saw, the filament probably would have interrupted the flow just beyond the turbo and then, you know, through the block and whatnot. But that is what it is. The other thing that I'm going to do is, well, I'm not going to do this just yet, but this is IAG's power steering hose for obviously the power steering rack. But what it does is this guy right here, where am I trying to point? This guy right here, this hard line goes away. It's going to be no more. So I'll have a lot more, not a lot more, but some freedom around this area. But what it does is it connects right here, obviously, but then goes underneath the intake manifold and down to the steering rack. So that should make things a lot easier. And excuse all the mess, but whatever. And then these are going to be replacing what I have on right now. I have regular worm clamps, and let me show you them. We all know what these look like. But as you can see, the splines, for lack of better terms, don't have any protection on them. So they just like dig into the hose, which you can kind of see right there. And basically, you know, wear and tear on this guy. I know it's not evenly cut either. That's kind of embarrassing, but it is what it is. So it cuts into that, but these ones have a lining on them. So the tighter, or it has those few exposed right there, but those aren't even going to be exposed by the time this has any clamping power on the hose. So I'm going to put these on, and should also hopefully create a tighter seal because these little slots won't be grabbing onto the hose and probably pulling on it. So I'm hoping for that to be better. And then I also have them for the upper hose too, so I'll do that. And then filling it up back with coolant, and like I said, going on and doing the next calibration. And hopefully, you know, once we get there, this should be about the last couple of tests. It will depend on what these spark plugs look like, which I'll also share. And then it's just like really ironing things out and just having fun with it. And then once the track stuff starts to come in, probably getting a little bit more serious about super fine tuning everything, and then increasing power as I get better and better. And with my parents moving down to Florida, I am now finally going to have an excuse to finally go down to some Florida tracks and venture around. Hopefully I'll also be able to get up to New York, where a buddy of mine is, and go around the track on Watkins Glen with him. But until then, let's stay focused on what's going on now. I've got a little squirrel moment going on there. So let's go take a look at what the log shows. So I got a little bit more than the 2 pulls or the 2 tests that I told y'all about. And sorry for the background not being the car in the garage, but it is way too cold. We're in the midst of this famous winter storm that's going on the it's now the 24th of January. But I actually held off just because I wanted to have a little bit more substance in the videos. Otherwise, it would have been me talking about a bunch of different test pools, and there would have been no real content because, you know, now it's too cold for me to even drive the car. Maybe if I put 93 into it, I could, but oil temps and all that are not getting to proper temp, and I don't want to drive it when, you know, that stuff is overly sensitive, and I don't need the pistons being cold and slapping around and all that jazz. So anyway, let's get into this. And so I'm going to be talking through quite a bit more than just the 2. I'm going to start off with the 2, obviously, but then I've got all the other series of tests. So essentially, at this point, we are done with basic tuning. We got the rotary knob set up and all that jazz, but all that's left is to do some fine tuning, especially when we get to the track. The 270 kPa and the 220 kPa are definitely going to get ironed out, and I got a little bit more to talk about those. But the 330, it will be as well, but that's going to be like a little bit of a long road rather than a quick road as with the 220 and 270, as I'll talk about as we go along. So anyway, let's get into it. So as I mentioned prior, I had already tested 330 kPa twice, and this, what you're seeing right here, is the first run. And rather than show that whole data log, let me just show you the fun part of it, and I'll zoom out just a little bit more so you can see the full boost ramp. And that's about it. All right, so for this one, unfortunately, for whatever reason, the PID had turned off. So as you can see here, purple line, don't, the two lines aren't to be confused, but for all of these, the green line here is going to be throttle position. Throttle position. Then you got purple being boost. Pink doesn't really matter. You can look at it, but it's the wheel driven speed. And then blue is going to be the engine RPM. Over here you can see on the right, you can see all the parameters, and most of what I have in here now is the ignition cut, which is going to come into play later. But paying attention to engine speed, or the, I wouldn't say engine speed, but the map, so the purple line, boost, and then the throttle position will probably be more important. And you'll also see, gosh, sorry, I'm thinking about everything that's involved in this, but you'll also see the wastegate duty cycle come in and do its dance as we talk about all this. So actually, now that I think about it, it is kind of funny. I've attempted to do this multiple times, and I'm actually kind of happy that I've had some practice, because I went through back through messages to get some context behind some things, and then now I'm noticing some things in this. So as you can see, we never went past 270 kPa here, and that is because somehow, some way, the PID settings turn themselves off in the calibration or whatever. So it was only able to get through stage one is just always active, and stage one was not able to be gotten out of. So not to insult anybody's intelligence, but for anybody that's not like familiar with this as much as I'm not either, but obviously going through this whole process, I've learned a little bit. So just to kind of give some, rudimentary explanation of this, by all means, this is not like PhD level stuff. This is just way super simplified for my own understanding. There's three stages. Stage one is pre-spool, which is basically getting the turbo spun up as quickly as it can, or as quickly as possible to get to try to get to target. Stage two kicks in at a designated point in time or reference chosen by tuner, owner, whoever, and then and that's to kind of settle the turbo down and creep it up a little bit more to target boost. And then stage three is to kind of creep it there and then keep it as close to target boost as possible. So for my setup, stage one goes from it's activated, or closed loop control is activated at 100 kPa. So I kind of misspoke when I said it's always active. It's not active until the ECU is seeing 100 kPa through the map sensor. So at 100 it activates, and then stage one is all the way up into 270 kPa. At 270 kPa, we move from stage one to stage two, but in the software it's written as target boost minus 60 kPa. So if you go over to the right, my target boost here is 330 kPa. So minus 60 would be 270 kPa, plus or minus a few, like a little bit of wiggle room there, so that the turbo or the ECU can catch it and whatnot, because you've got to imagine how fast this is actually going in real time. And then stage three, like I said, kind of just like settles down a little bit more and then keeps the turbo right in a spot with some spare kPa to go. But anyway, Stage 3 takes over at target boost minus 20 kPa. So at 330 or 310 kPa is when stage 3 takes over. So to iron that out, stage 1 is 100 kPa to 270 kPa. Stage 2 is 270 kPa to 310 kPa. And then stage 3 is 310 kPa to 330 kPa, plus or minus, or with a little bit of wiggle room so that boost cut doesn't activate. And for this, these test pulls, it was at plus, I believe it was plus 20 kPa. So I had 20 kPa of overboost. So if once the ECU sees 350 kPa is when it says no more, we're done. So we never exited stage 1 of closed loop boost control, and as you can kind of see here, with the white line being the ignition or the wastegate duty cycle, over here on the right, it never left 35%. So once I sent that off, my tuner sent me another one, or another calibration, and that's where we get into stage 2, and we have some fun here, and we did get to 330 kPa plus or minus 5 kPa, so we didn't hit boost cut. Bravo, good thing for us. But in this, so we're seeing the good run here, and as you'll notice, you can see that the purple line, boost line, is all sorts of crazy. Don't mind my weird foot throttle control. But as you can see here, the boost level goes crazy. It's kind of like in a step pattern, and then we got the boost, or closed loop, making the wastegate dance a little bit. So to explain this, and it smooths out, is just very exaggerated here, but to get some clarification from my tuner. So he limits boost for me because I'm not competitively racing, and I also don't have money just to throw at another engine, and I don't have any spares or anything like that, so we're kind of doing things in a little bit of a safe manner. So he limits boost up to 4K, and then we get a little bit of a turn up of boost at 5K, and then at 6K plus we're at full boost. So just he's trying to save me money there, which I very much appreciate, because I didn't even know that was possible. I am learning a lot about what can happen through a calibration with a standalone ECU. So we reach 330 kPa here, but for whatever reason, on the second attempt here, that is not the story. I don't understand why, but now we're looking at it. Like I said before, you can see here on this one, the wastegate is dancing all over the place. And then for some odd reason, even though I didn't change the calibration or anything, this is the exact same calibration, maybe a few minutes or so later, it never exited stage 1 of closed loop. So it stayed at the 35 wastegate duty cycle, and boost was therefore limited to 270 kPa plus or minus, or plus 20 for the safety net. So there's that, and then I believe it was after this one that my tuner lowered the duty cycle by 5%. But the problem is you can't. It'll have an effect on the later stages of closed loop if we were to only affect one duty cycle table. It would work for stage 1, but then stage 2 and 3 would be impacted by that. So we can't just play with one stage. We have to play with all 3. So moving on from this, we'll go to attempt number 3. And right before attempt number 3, I changed the plugs, and all the plugs got, based on my tuner's recommendation. And what else was there? Changed the plugs, and that was it. And then on this, I was also told to stay off the limiter. So just from my being stupid and not knowing things, I would always hit the limiter when I was doing test pulls, and that's not necessarily what you need. But I did it because I thought you needed to for a full test run. But not the case. You don't need to go all the way to red line. So I since then have stepped back down to 7,000, whereas the limiter's at 7,500. So missing that 500 isn't going to impact the data collection, so to say. So anyway, as you can see here, we over here on the right, we did hit 330 kPa, and the wastegate's doing its dance, having fun. And in the second pull, just for verification of it, I wanted to do another one. And again, as you can see here, it is not a solid line for the wastegate duty cycle. And up here, we are good to go with the safety net. We went a little bit over, but still good to go. So now we are done with just this portion of the testing. Now we are entering trim pot, the trim pot situation, which is actually kind of an interesting one. So, but to go back first, I was talking about racing and whatnot, and after we got done with 330, even though it is a setting that I do have, my tuner wants me to stay off of that as much as I possibly can, only do it in the needed and necessary situations. So he recommends me stay off of them because right now we have no reference for exhaust gas temperatures, and we don't have like specified air fuel ratios. So no exhaust gas temperature whatsoever for readings. We have none of that information, and the only reading we have for air fuel is the average of the four. So once I can get O2 sensors and exhaust gas temperature probes for each primary, then we can start getting really we'll see more fidelity. We'll have more resolution in the data and be able to more finely tune it. So as I said, now let's jump into the fun that is the trim pot testing. So as you can see here, we have another case of the car falling flat on its face, where it hit 270 kPa and then just died, and the boost like plummeted, and wastegate's doing its dance, however not the dance that we want it to do, and then it just kind of levels off at just below 200 kPa. So the reason for this is for whatever reason, not whatever reason, my tuner knew, I suppose, but forgot just a little bit. But so once we activated the trim pot, a second table for duty cycle entered the situation. It entered the chat, and so when we were in stage one, stage one, because as I said before, stage one ends at 270 kPa and stage two begins at 270 kPa. So when the end of stage one happened, stage two referenced the other duty cycle table. The unfortunate part about that was the duty cycle table was zeroed out, so it was just, I believe that means it was closed. It always confuses me, and I'm not going to do the research right in the middle of the video. But regardless, as you can see here, so the wastegate was doing its thing. Stage one, it's just kind of kept at a constant 50%, and then it nosedived down to 0 and came up to 14. So PID was still working. We were still kind of in closed loop boost control, and stage one was trying to do its thing. But it can only compensate for 14% of the duty cycle, and that wasn't enough. So went back and left that one, and what my tuner did was, just to make things easy, was copied stage one, or the first duty cycle table, entirely to the second. So I just have like both of them are the exact same. They're just replicas of each other. So there's no difference. And what do you know it? It worked and it was a success. So perfectly fine. Stage one, jump into stage two, there was no hesitation. And the wastegate started doing its dance. It went from 50% down to 45 and, all over the place. But we stayed at roughly 230 kPa for all of it. So that was all well and good. And now we enter to where I was being stupid. So for all of this, and this is where the baby blue line that I was talking about comes into play. I was dumb, and all the pools before this all the tests had been done in third gear, and I decided to jump it into fourth gear. And as you can see here by the throttle position, try to do some math here, but let's say this is at 10.9. At 10.9, we're at 3,500 RPM ish, and then at 10 point, what is that, 5 ish, 10.5, we're at 3,700. So already at fully loading the engine with the throttle body blade wide open. That's what I said, 10.9 and 11.5, or 10.9 and 10.5, so 0.4 seconds, which is insane. 0.4 seconds went from that to that, so gained 3,000 RPM or 300 RPM, and that was all, and I was already up there. So this is heavily loading the engine, not good. And so the boost ramp is a little bit steeper than it probably should have been, because as you can see, it climbs right up to 330 kPa, but I think it did it too fast, and I don't know if the log is necessarily catching it. However, there might have been a spike right here. Well, there was, because as you can see, like I said, the baby blue line, this is ignition cut. It goes from, as you can see, 0 right there, all the way up to 61%. So boost cut, engine said, you're done. And I explained this to my tuner, and he's like, hey, dude, I don't recommend you going into fourth, fifth, or sixth gear unless it's in a racing situation, and never go into those gears at a lower RPM. I think he mentioned 4,000, but I'm gonna safety net myself at 5,000, and I don't think I've ever done that before anyway. Just for the sake of getting the turbo spooled up, it's always best to be like 5,000 or above. So that was the first, or both the trim pot. So now the trim pot is set because we got the second table filled out, so we shouldn't have any problems. So I decided to have some fun and check all three settings, and I went out with a buddy of mine who helped me put the engine together, and went out to have a little bit of fun. So now I also have 73% ethanol, as you can see over here on the right. It'll say it right there, 73% ethanol. And for this, I decided I wanted to go see if multi-gear pools worked. So that's what we went out and did. So on this, we're targeting 220 kPa. It gets there, it overshoots just a little bit, but then PID is like, whoa, buddy, and reels everything back in. And then I shift into third to fourth, and success yet again. Now, to make sure that this was not just a fluke, I did it again later on, and we had a problem. Say hello to our friend, the baby blue line, yet again. And let's go right there. I love this software, but talking through it is a little bit difficult just for video purposes. So we hit boost cut again, boost ramp, good. But for whatever reason, we hit the engine didn't like whatever happened and cut the ignition by, I think it actually got up to 70%, but it's at 67 right there, and then just killed it. So I was like, gosh dang it. So obviously logic would have me turn up the boost and see if that works. So I did that, and 270 kPa is, 270 kPa, no matter what, I want to say that, no matter which position on the trim pot that I am on, if I am not at 270 or if I am not at 70% plus on ethanol content, the ECU will revert to the 220 kPa boost target. And that's because 220 is triggered at 70 plus, and that's in position 2, and then position 3, obvious, or no, position 0 is 220, position 1 is 270, and position 2 and on is 330. So as long as if I'm in position 1 and I only have 65% ethanol, 220 kPa is going to be the boost target. If I have the trim pot in positions 1 or 2 and I have over 70% ethanol, then 270 or 330 respectively will be targeted. So anyway, I put it in position 1 for 270 kPa, and it worked like a charm. Stayed right at 270 kPa. I just did a test on a single gear pool, and that was in third gear. All third gear tests. So with 270 working, I said, hey, you know what? I bet you 220 will work again. And that was not the case. I went back out, and as you can see, I get ignition cut yet again. It was all smooth up until, really kind of red line, but it cut out before red line. And yeah, so I hit that, and so I was like, well, dang it. And logic again came into play, and I was like, hey, if it didn't work in 220 but it worked in 270, I re-verified that it didn't work in 220, let's go ahead and try 330 kPa. So I tried 330 kPa, and we had nothing but success. So as you can see right here, I get up to 330 kPa and it holds just fine. And since I had my buddy with me, I was like, we need to make this happen. So went for like maybe a few minutes later, went out again, and thankfully this is also to verify that the closed loop boost control is actually working, and unlike what was happening beforehand, where I was just hitting boost cut as soon as I shifted. So starting in third gear, trudging along, boom, got all the way up to 330 kPa thereabouts in third gear, shifted right there, and it goes much faster than this obviously in real time, and then right back up to 330 kPa in fourth, and no boost cut. Everything was good, and I was super happy, and that was also a thrill for my buddy. However, it was getting late, so I dropped him off, and on my way home, I was like, well, if 270, couldn't get 220 to work. 270 worked in a single gear, so we tested 330 in single gear. It worked in single gear, so we tried 2 gears, and 330 worked in 2 gears. So let's try to do 270 in 2 gears, and this is that run. So in this run, obviously did, or not obviously, but it did do exactly what it was supposed to do. Third gear shift into fourth gear, pulled right back up to 270. So there we are, and it worked. So now the tuning is done, like I said, for the street, except for fine tuning when we can. I did set my tuner a log, and for the 220 kPa setting, he decreased the duty cycle by 1%. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll see how it does go. I say that mostly because of the fact that the reason why we had to go through all of this is because of the oversensitivity of my car with the duty cycle versus boost. So we'll see how it all goes. But I also have there's 2 organizations that have track events that are going on in March. They're the first ones of the season, so I'm going to try to go out there. Probably not going to get much track time, at least on Saturday, because I'm probably just going to do a lap one hot lap. So, do a warm up lap and then a hot lap, come back and send the log off to my tuner so he can take a look at it and give me the go ahead, or say, hey, we need to adjust some things. And based off of that, I'll do what he has. And then hopefully by Sunday, we are able to run full 20-minute sessions and we'll be good to go. The car is currently on jack stands. I'm not driving it because, like I said at the beginning, it's too cold. So it might be a little bit of a rush when we do get to the point where I am getting ready to go to the track. And we'll do probably some more testing beforehand, just to see if we can dial stuff in just a little bit more. And I may also be getting the EGT probes for the car. I want to get the O2s for it, but that's a lot more expensive and complicated of parts to get, and it's also a lot more money, and it's also a lot more of a space space hog. Like, those O2s are not small, so I'd rather get the probes because I feel like those are easier and all the parts are much easier to find as well. So there we have it, y'all. I appreciate you watching. I know it was a long video, but hopefully this covers enough. It'll probably be a little while before the next, but we're about to get into some exciting times, so I am looking forward to it. But until then, y'all, thanks for watching, and I appreciate y'all. Stay driven.